You know what the problem with humans is? They touch everything. Seriously, everything. Give a human a big red button labeled "Do Not Push," and they'll push it faster than you can say "Galactic Extinction Event." I learned this the hard way when I had the brilliant idea of bringing one of them on an archaeological expedition to Velthara Prime. My name is Crix9, and I'm what you might call a xeno-archaeologist. That's a fancy way of saying I dig up old alien stuff for a living, and sometimes, just sometimes, that old alien stuff tries to kill me. It's a living, I suppose. The human in question was Dr. Maya Hendricks, a supposedly expert archaeologist from Earth, who came highly recommended. The recommendation apparently failed to mention that she had all the impulse control of a caffeinated squirrel. Standing barely 5 feet tall with unruly brown hair and eyes that seemed to find mischief in everything, Maya was the kind of human who would probably poke a sleeping dragon just to see what would happen. Spoiler alert, she basically did exactly that. "So, Crix," Maya said, bouncing on her heels as we approached the ancient structure on Velthara Prime, "remind me again why this place has been untouched for 3,000 years. I adjusted my translation device and tried to sound professional. "Because, Dr. Hendricks, the last expedition that came here reported seeing shadows with teeth and fled the planet screaming about the Watchers in the Stone. Standard archaeological protocol suggests extreme caution when dealing with sites that make grown Zephyrians wet themselves in terror." Maya's eyes lit up. Oh, great. That was her "this sounds dangerous and fun" expression. I was already regretting this partnership. "Watchers in the Stone," she repeated, grinning. "Sounds like my kind of Tuesday." The ruins of the Veltharan civilization stretched before us like the rib cage of some massive dead beast. Towering spires of black stone reached toward the crimson sky, their surfaces covered in hieroglyphs that seemed to shift and writhe when you weren't looking directly at them. The air itself felt heavy, pregnant with the kind of ancient malevolence that made smart people turn around and go home. Maya, naturally, strode forward like she owned the place. "The Veltharans," I explained, hurrying to keep up with her surprisingly quick pace, "were master architects and engineers. They built structures that defied conventional physics, tapped into dimensional energies we still don't understand, and then disappeared. Completely. No bodies, no records of where they went. Just empty cities and a whole lot of very ominous warnings carved into their walls." "Warnings about what?" Maya asked, running her fingers along one of the hieroglyphs. I winced. Touching ancient alien writing was item number 1 on the "How to Die Horribly in Space" checklist. "Well, the translations are somewhat unclear, but they seem to center around something called the Throne of Storms and references to sleeping guardians and the price of awakening. You know, typical ancient civilization doom prophecy stuff. Very cheerful." Maya laughed, and the sound echoed strangely in the ruins. "You know what your problem is, Crix? You worry too much. Sometimes an ancient throne is just an ancient throne." I was about to point out that in my experience, ancient thrones were never just ancient thrones, when we rounded a corner and found ourselves in the central chamber of the complex. And there it was. The Throne of Storms sat in the exact center of the vast circular room, carved from what looked like a single piece of obsidian. It was beautiful in the way that poisonous things often are, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The air around it shimmered with barely contained energy, and I could have sworn I heard whispers in languages that predated most known civilizations. "Now that," Maya said, her voice filled with admiration, "is one hell of a chair." "Maya," I said carefully, "I really don't think we should get too close to it. The energy readings I'm getting are off the charts, and there's something about this place that's making my survival instinct scream very loudly." But Maya was already walking toward the throne, her scanner beeping rapidly as she took readings. "The craftsmanship is incredible. Look at these symbols, Crix. They're not just decorative. They're some kind of containment matrix. This thing was built to hold something in, or keep something out." I followed reluctantly, my own scanner confirming her readings. The throne was indeed more than just a seat. It was some kind of technological marvel disguised as furniture. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the known databases, and the quantum signatures were doing things that should have been physically impossible. "The question is," Maya continued, circling the throne like a predator studying its prey, "what happens if someone sits on it?" "Nothing," I said quickly. "Nothing happens because no one is going to sit on the obviously dangerous ancient alien throne. That's like Galactic Exploration 101, Maya. When you find the ominous glowing chair, you don't sit in the ominous glowing chair." Maya looked at me with that expression humans get when they're about to do something spectacularly stupid. "But what if it's just ceremonial? What if it's perfectly safe, and we're missing out on the archaeological discovery of the century because we're too scared to take a little risk?" "Or," I countered, "what if it summons an army of interdimensional demons and turns us both into cosmic chew toys? I'm just saying, the odds don't look great either way." She was already moving closer to the throne. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Humans, I had learned, were incapable of leaving well enough alone. Show them a mystery, and they'd poke at it until it either revealed its secrets or exploded in their faces. Sometimes both. "Maya," I said, trying to inject as much authority into my voice as possible, "as the senior xenoarchaeologist on this expedition, I'm ordering you to step away from the throne. We need to document everything first, run more detailed scans, consult with the archives, maybe bring in a team of specialists who actually know what they're doing with ancient Veltharan technology." Maya looked at me over her shoulder and grinned. "You know what, Crix? You're absolutely right. We should be careful. We should follow protocol. We should do this by the book." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Finally, some common sense. "But first," Maya continued, and my relief turned to ice-cold dread, "let me just give it a little pat. You know, for luck." "Maya, no." But it was too late. Dr. Maya Hendricks, in all her human wisdom, reached out and gave the Throne of Storms a cheerful slap on the armrest. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The throne blazed with light so bright I had to shield my eyes. The air filled with a sound like reality tearing at the seams, and every piece of technology I was carrying started screaming warnings in 17 different languages. The ground beneath our feet began to vibrate, then shake, then buck like a living thing, trying to throw us off its back. "Well," Maya said, her voice remarkably calm considering the circumstances, "that's not good." The hieroglyphs on the walls began to glow, pulsing in sequence around the chamber like some kind of countdown. Or maybe a summoning circle. With ancient alien technology, the two were often depressingly similar. And then the real fun started. The ceiling above us, which I had assumed was solid stone, began to crack. Not just crack, it began to split apart in perfect geometric patterns, revealing what looked like open sky beyond. Except the sky was wrong. Instead of the familiar crimson atmosphere of Velthara Prime, I was looking at roiling storm clouds the color of old blood, lit from within by lightning that moved in patterns too organized to be natural. Crix, Maya said, her voice still infuriatingly calm. I think we might have made a tiny mistake. A sound echoed from the storm-filled sky above us. It started as a low rumble, like distant thunder, but gradually resolved into something else entirely. Something that made every instinct I had developed over 20 years of dangerous archaeological work scream at me to run. It was the sound of wings. Massive wings. Multiple sets of massive wings. Oh, come on, I muttered, grabbing Maya's arm. Seriously? Dragons. It had to be dragons? The first one descended through the opening in the ceiling like a living nightmare. It was easily the size of a small spacecraft, its scales black as the void between stars and its eyes burning with the same energy that pulsed through the throne. When it landed in the chamber with us, the impact cracked the stone floor and sent both Maya and me tumbling. But it wasn't alone. More shapes moved in the storm clouds above, their roars mixing with the thunder to create a symphony of impending doom. The dragon fixed its burning gaze on Maya, who was picking herself up and dusting off her clothes with the kind of casual attitude you might expect from someone who had just discovered a new coffee shop, not awakened an army of ancient guardians. So, she said to the dragon, apparently deciding that casual conversation was the appropriate response to our situation, I don't suppose you speak Standard Galactic? The dragon opened its mouth, revealing teeth the size of swords, and spoke in a voice like grinding stone. 3,000 years we have slept. 3,000 years we have waited. And now, the compact is broken by the touch of an outsider. Maya blinked. Oh, good. You do speak Standard. That makes this easier. She looked up at the creature with genuine curiosity. So, what's this about a compact? I stared at her in disbelief. Maya, it's a dragon. A very large, very angry dragon that we just accidentally woke up. This is not the time for casual conversation. Actually, the dragon said, lowering its massive head to study Maya more closely, conversation is precisely what this situation requires. You have awakened the guardians of the threshold. You have broken the ancient agreements. And now, small human, you must answer for your actions. More dragons were descending now, filling the chamber with their bulk and their presence. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and old magic, and the temperature dropped noticeably. I counted at least 6 of the creatures, each one unique in coloring but all sharing the same ancient, predatory intelligence. Look, Maya said, apparently deciding to negotiate with the entities that could incinerate us both without breaking a sweat. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that touching your throne was a bad idea. I'm sorry about that. It was just sitting there looking all mysterious and inviting, and you know how it is with humans. We see a big red button, we push it. One of the other dragons, this one deep blue with silver markings, snorted in what might have been amusement. Humans. Yes, we know of humans. The young ones. The curious ones. The ones who break everything they touch. Hey now, Maya protested. We don't break everything, just most things, and usually by accident. The first dragon, apparently the leader, raised its head to look at both of us. The compact of Velthara was signed in blood and starfire. The guardians agreed to sleep while the mortals learned wisdom. We were to wake only when they proved themselves worthy, or when the greatest threat to existence itself arose. I felt a sinking sensation in my stomach. And touching the throne counts as which of those two things? Neither, the dragon replied grimly. It counts as the breaking of the compact itself, which means the ancient protections are void, the barriers are fallen, and what we have guarded against for 3 millennia is now free to return." Maya and I looked at each other. Even she was starting to look concerned now. "Return from where?" I asked, though I was pretty sure I didn't want to know the answer. The dragon's eyes blazed brighter. "From the spaces between spaces. From the void where we cast them when they last threatened all existence. The Devourers are coming, and thanks to your humans' curiosity, they will find a universe unguarded and unprepared." "Okay," Maya said slowly. "That sounds bad, really bad, like universe-ending bad." "Indeed. The Devourers consume not just matter and energy, but the very concepts that hold reality together. They turn existence itself into nothing, leaving behind not even emptiness, but the absence of the possibility of anything ever existing at all." I sat down heavily on a piece of fallen stone. "So let me get this straight. Maya touched your chair, which broke an ancient protective spell that was keeping cosmic horrors locked away in interdimensional prison, and now said cosmic horrors are coming to unmake reality itself." "That is essentially correct." Maya had the good grace to look embarrassed. In my defense, there wasn't a sign. All 6 dragons turned to stare at her. There were warnings carved into every surface of this entire city, the blue dragon pointed out. "Okay, yes, but they were in ancient Veltharan. I can't read ancient Veltharan." "Your companion can," said a 3rd dragon, this one green with gold highlights. "We can sense his understanding of our language." Maya turned to look at me with an expression of dawning realization. "Crix, you can read the warnings." I cleared my throat uncomfortably. "Well, yes. It's kind of my job to—" "And you didn't think to mention that the warnings specifically said not to touch the throne?" "I thought it was implied. I mean, I told you it was dangerous. I said we shouldn't go near it." "You said we should be careful. You didn't say it would end the universe." "I didn't know it would end the universe. The warnings just said something about awakening guardians and paying a price. They didn't include a detailed explanation of cosmic horror scenarios." The lead dragon watched our argument with what I could have sworn was amusement. "Humans," it said to its companions, "are even more entertaining than the old records suggested." "This is not entertaining," I snapped. "This is a disaster of galactic proportions." "Actually," Maya said thoughtfully, "this is kind of fascinating. I mean, yes, potentially catastrophic, but also fascinating. We're talking to actual dragons who have been guarding reality from cosmic entities for 3,000 years. From a xeno-archaeological perspective, this is incredible." The dragons exchanged glances. The blue one spoke up. "She is. Not what we expected from the one who would break the compact." "What did you expect?" Maya asked. "Someone more intentionally malevolent. The prophecies spoke of a great betrayer, a seeker of power who would break the bonds for personal gain. Instead, we find—" The dragon paused, studying her. "A scholar who touched something shiny because she was curious." "Hey, that's a fair assessment of my entire career," Maya admitted. The ground beneath us suddenly shook again, but this time it felt different. Not like the awakening of the Guardians, but like something forcing its way through from somewhere else entirely. The lead dragon's head snapped up, nostrils flaring. "They come. The first scouts probe the barriers. We have perhaps an hour before the vanguard arrives in force." "An hour?" I yelped. "An hour to do what?" "To decide the fate of all existence," the dragon replied grimly. "The compact is broken. The old protections are void. But perhaps new agreements can be forged." Maya stepped forward, ignoring the fact that she was addressing beings that could reduce her to ash with a thought. What kind of agreements? The kind that require champions, warriors, heroes. The dragon's burning gaze settled on her. The kind that require someone willing to stand against the Devourers when they arrive. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want Maya to fight cosmic horrors? She's an archaeologist. Her greatest combat achievement was probably surviving graduate school. Hey, Maya protested. I'll have you know I once fought off 3 muggers with nothing but a trowel and a very stern lecture about the historical significance of the artifact they were trying to steal. The dragons were definitely amused now. The green one actually chuckled, a sound like distant thunder. She has spirit. And more importantly, she has already proven herself capable of changing the fate of the universe with a single action. That was an accident, Maya and I said in unison. Was it? Asked the lead dragon. The throne has sat untouched for 3 millennia. Hundreds of expeditions have found this place. Thousands of beings have gazed upon it. Yet none have acted until now. None have possessed the combination of curiosity, courage, and reckless disregard for consequences necessary to break the ancient bonds. Maya looked thoughtful. So you're saying I was destined to slap your chair? Destiny is a word used by those who lack understanding of the complex web of cause and effect that shapes reality. But yes, Doctor, Maya Hendricks, in the truest sense that matters, you were always going to touch the throne. The question now is, what will you do next? The ground shook again, more violently this time. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear a sound like reality screaming. Right, Maya said, cracking her knuckles in a way that somehow managed to be both determined and terrifying. So we've got cosmic horrors incoming, ancient guardians awakened, and the fate of existence hanging in the balance. Just another Tuesday, really. She looked up at the dragons with the same expression she'd worn when approaching the throne. Equal parts curiosity and complete disregard for her own safety. So, where do we start? The lead dragon, who introduced himself as Thorak the Stormwing, because apparently even ancient cosmic guardians had dramatic names, gestured toward a section of the wall that was now glowing with new symbols. First, you must understand what you face, Thorak rumbled. The Devourers are not merely destructive. They are the antithesis of existence itself. They do not kill or conquer. They unmake. Where they pass, it is as if nothing ever was, ever could be, or ever should be. Maya nodded seriously, pulling out a small notebook and actually taking notes. Right, so we're dealing with conceptual erasure entities. Got it? Any weaknesses? I stared at her. Maya, you're taking notes on how to fight beings that can delete reality? Well, yeah. If we're going to save the universe, we should probably know what we're up against. It's called being prepared, Crix. The blue dragon, Azura Stormscale, lowered her massive head to peer at Maya's notebook. Your species' dedication to documentation, even in the face of absolute annihilation, is admirable. The Devourers have one weakness. They cannot unmake what is actively being created or renewed. Life, growth, change, these things resist their influence. So we fight entropy with creativity? Maya asked. Essentially, yes. The Veltharans discovered this principle before their sacrifice. They created a network of reality anchors, points where existence is constantly being reinforced and renewed. The throne you touched was the primary control node. I felt my blood freeze. Was? As in past tense? Thorak nodded grimly. When the compact was broken, the network began to fail. We estimate 6 hours before complete systemic collapse across this sector of the galaxy. Maya stopped writing. 6 hours? But you said we had an hour before the Vanguard arrived. Correct, which means we have 5 hours to either repair the network or establish a new one while fighting off the advanced forces of cosmic horror. Oh, is that all? I muttered. For a minute there, I thought this was going to be challenging. The green dragon, Verdak the Ancient, extended one massive claw toward Maya. Climb up, little human. If you are to serve as our champion, you must see the true scope of what we face. Maya looked at the offered claw, then at me. Crix, are you seeing this? I'm about to ride a dragon. This is either the best day of my life or the last day of my life. Probably both, I replied, but I was already moving toward Azura. If Maya gets to ride a dragon, I'm not staying down here alone with the interdimensional horror sounds. Flying on Dragonback, it turned out, was exactly as terrifying and exhilarating as you'd expect. Thorak carried Maya while Azura took me, and we soared up through the shattered ceiling into the storm-filled sky above Velthara Prime. The view was both beautiful and horrifying. The planet stretched out below us, covered in the ruins of the once great Veltharan civilization. But at the edges of my vision, I could see wrongness. Areas where the landscape seemed to flicker and fade, where the very air looked thin and uncertain. The decay spreads, Thorak announced, his voice carrying easily over the rushing wind. Those regions are where the network has already failed. Soon, they will be nothing at all. Maya was staring at one of the fading areas with scientific fascination. It's not just disappearing. It's like someone is erasing it from the fundamental equations of reality. Precisely. And when the Devourers arrive in force, that process will accelerate exponentially. We landed on a tall spire that rose from the center of the ruined city. From here, I could see dozens of other structures, all connected by lines of energy that pulsed weakly through the air. The network was visible from this height, a vast web of power that spanned the entire planet. And it was dying. The Veltharans built well, Verdak observed, landing beside us with 2 more dragons I hadn't met yet. But even their engineering cannot sustain itself without active maintenance. The network requires a conscious will to guide it, to make the constant creative choices that keep reality stable. So, we need to find someone to run it, Maya said. Someone who can think fast enough to constantly reinforce existence across an entire planet. Thorak turned his ancient gaze on her. We need a human. I blinked. Sorry, what now? Humans, Azura explained, process information and make decisions at a rate that far exceeds most species. Your neural pathways are chaotic, unpredictable, creative. These are exactly the qualities needed to operate a reality stabilization network. Maya was grinning now, and that was never a good sign. You want me to plug myself into an ancient alien machine that controls the fundamental nature of existence? The process is not without risk, Thorak admitted. The mental strain of maintaining reality across a planetary scale has driven previous operators to madness within hours. Previous operators? I asked weakly. The Veltharans volunteered their finest minds to serve as network controllers. Each lasted approximately 4 hours before their consciousness was completely fragmented by the experience. Maya's grin widened. Challenge accepted. Maya, no, I said automatically, but she was already walking toward what looked like another control throne that had risen from the center of the spire. Maya, yes, she replied cheerfully. Come on, Crix. When are we ever going to get another chance to save the universe? This is like winning the cosmic lottery. The cosmic lottery that kills you. Details. The sky above us suddenly tore open with a sound like reality having a nervous breakdown. Through the rift, I caught a glimpse of something that my mind refused to process. Shapes that weren't shapes, moving in directions that didn't exist, approaching with a hunger that could devour concepts themselves. "The Vanguard arrives ahead of schedule," Thorak announced. "Dr. Hendricks, if you are going to attempt this, it must be now." Maya was already sitting in the control throne, her hands hovering over surfaces covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Crix, I'm going to need you to be my anchor." "Your what?" "Human consciousness can't handle this kind of information flow alone. I need someone to keep me grounded in baseline reality while I'm interfacing with the network. Think of it as cosmic tech support." One of the unnamed dragons, this one silver with black markings, landed nearby. The human is correct. Previous attempts failed because the operators lost connection to their own species' perspective. You must maintain a communication link with her throughout the process. I looked at Maya, who was studying the control surfaces with the same expression she'd worn when examining the original throne. "You know this is insane, right?" "Completely," she agreed. "But it's also the most important thing anyone has ever asked me to do. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? You could go insane, die horribly, or accidentally unmake reality yourself. See? You always look on the bright side." She placed her hands on the control surfaces, and the effect was immediate. The throne blazed with light, and suddenly I could feel Maya's consciousness expanding, spreading out across the network of energy that held the planet together. And through our communication link, I could feel what she was experiencing. It was like trying to think with the mind of a god while remaining fundamentally human. Every second, thousands of decisions needed to be made. Should this molecule continue to exist? Should that gravitational field maintain its current strength? Should the electromagnetic spectrum keep operating according to the same rules it had for the past billion years? Maya was somehow managing it all, her consciousness split across millions of simultaneous tasks while maintaining enough coherence to actually improve the network's efficiency. "Holy," she gasped, her voice coming from the throne speakers now. "Crix, I can see everything. Every atom, every quantum interaction, every possibility that could exist or fail to exist. This is incredible." Through the link, I could feel her joy and wonder, but also the enormous strain the process was putting on her mind. "Maya, your neural patterns are spiking into dangerous territory. You need to slow down." "Can't slow down. The Devourers are testing the barriers. I can feel them pushing against the network, trying to find weak points." Above us, more rifts were opening in the sky. The Dragon Guardians were launching themselves into battle against things that shouldn't exist, breathing fire and lightning at entities that existed in the spaces between dimensions. "The network is stabilizing," Thorak reported, diving past us while engaging something that looked like a living shadow with too many angles. "But we cannot hold them indefinitely. We need a permanent solution." Maya's consciousness touched mine through the link, and suddenly I could see what she was seeing. The Devourers weren't just attacking randomly, they were following a pattern, probing for the central control node. They knew that if they could reach Maya, they could collapse the entire network. "Crix," Maya said, her voice strained but determined, "I need you to do something for me." "Anything. I need you to help me expand the network, not just across this planet, across the entire star system. We can create a permanent barrier that will keep the Devourers locked in their dimensional prison." I felt my blood run cold. "Maya, The strain of controlling a planetary network is already killing you. A star system would be thousands of times more complex. Not if I don't do it alone. Her consciousness reached out through the network, and I suddenly understood what she was proposing. The dragons. They're not just guardians. They're natural reality anchors. Their very existence stabilizes the space around them. If I can link them into the network, you want to turn the dragons into living control nodes? I want to turn us all into living control nodes. Humans, dragons, even you Zephyrians have unique neural patterns that could contribute to the network. We create a collective consciousness that can maintain reality across multiple star systems. Thorak, apparently monitoring our conversation even while fighting cosmic horrors, called out, "The proposal has merit, but the risk is enormous. If the collective consciousness fragments, all participants could be lost." "And if we don't try," Maya shot back, "everyone dies anyway when the Devourers break through the barriers." More rifts were opening now, and the Dragon Guardians were being pushed back toward our position. Whatever was coming through those dimensional tiers was getting stronger and more organized. "All right," I said, making what was probably the worst decision of my life. "How do we do this?" Maya's relief flooded through the link. "Each dragon needs to interface with a control node. You'll need to establish communication links with all of them simultaneously. Think of yourself as a cosmic switchboard operator." That doesn't sound terrifying at all. The dragons were already moving into position around the spire, each one settling onto a throne that had risen from the stone. As they connected to the network, I felt their consciousness touch mine, ancient, vast, and surprisingly gentle. Thorak's mental voice was like distant thunder. "We are ready, little archaeologist. Link us together." I took a deep breath and opened my mind to the network. Suddenly, I wasn't just Crix 9 anymore. I was Maya's determined curiosity, Thorak's ancient wisdom, Azura's fierce protectiveness, Verdak's patient strength, and the unique perspectives of all 6 Dragon Guardians. Together, we began to expand the network. It was like learning to think in 11 dimensions while juggling flaming swords. The complexity was staggering. Every star, every planet, every asteroid needed to be accounted for and maintained. But somehow, with our combined consciousness guiding the process, it was working. The barriers expanded outward from Velthara Prime like a bubble of reinforced reality. Where they passed, the dimensional rifts sealed themselves, and the encroaching nothingness was pushed back. But the Devourers weren't giving up easily. "They're adapting," Maya reported, her consciousness flickering as something tested the outer barriers. "They're learning to work around the network instead of fighting it directly." Through our shared awareness, I could sense what she meant. The Devourers were attempting to corrupt the network from within, inserting tiny fragments of unreality into our carefully maintained structure. "Counter-strategy time," I announced. "Maya, can you segregate the infected network sections?" "Already on it. Thorak, I need you to purge sectors 7 through 12. Azura, reinforce the quantum stabilizers in the outer rim. Everyone else, maintain baseline reality while we clean house." For the next hour, we played the ultimate game of cosmic whack-a-mole, identifying and eliminating Devourer incursions while maintaining the integrity of local space-time. It was exhausting, terrifying, and absolutely exhilarating. And then, suddenly, it was over. The last rift sealed itself with a sound like the universe sighing in relief. The Devourers, unable to maintain their assault against our expanded network, retreated back into whatever dimensional hell they called home. Did we actually win?" I asked, hardly daring to believe it. Maya's laughter echoed through the network. We didn't just win, Crix. We created something completely new. A living, adaptive reality network that can respond to threats automatically. We've essentially given this entire star system an immune system against cosmic horror. Thorak's ancient voice carried a note of satisfaction. The compact is not merely restored, it has evolved. The Guardians and their champions have forged something the Veltharans never imagined. As we began to disengage from the network, reducing it to automatic operation, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. We'd saved not just our lives, but the continued existence of everything. So, Maya said, finally stepping down from the control throne and stretching like someone who'd just completed the most intense mental workout in galactic history. That was fun. What should we do for our next expedition? I stared at her. Maya, we just saved the universe. Maybe we could take a vacation? Visit? Somewhere peaceful and boring where nothing is trying to unmake reality? She grinned at me, and I recognized that expression. It was the same one she'd worn when she decided to slap the throne. Where's the fun in that, Crix? Besides, I heard there's this really interesting archaeological site on Proxima 7. Something about a temple that grants wishes to anyone brave enough to solve its puzzles. The dragons all turned to look at her with expressions of growing alarm. Maya, Thorak said carefully, perhaps it would be wise to research such sites more thoroughly before visiting them. Oh, don't worry, Maya said, already pulling out her planning notebooks. I've learned my lesson about touching mysterious alien artifacts without proper preparation. She paused, then grinned again. Now I bring better equipment. I put my head in my hands. Saving the universe, I realized, had been the easy part. Keeping Maya from accidentally ending it again was going to be a full-time job. But as I watched her enthusiastically planning our next potentially catastrophic adventure, surrounded by ancient dragons who were already placing bets on what she'd break next, I couldn't help but smile. After all, where else in the galaxy could a simple archaeologist help save existence itself, make friends with cosmic guardians, and have the best adventure of several lifetimes? Just another Tuesday with humanity's most dangerous explorer. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.